It's my pleasure to be here this morning, and this is sort of the second in a series that you're experiencing today, all around the concept of leadership and living and leading your lives. And I want to thank Ina for a great foundation this morning. She did a fabulous job with planting those seeds that we need to think about through the course of the day. So the benefit and the richness of this conference that you're receiving today is that you have four presenters, myself being the second, that are going to capitalize on key points throughout the day and present a slight twist or a different perspective on them. And that's very helpful in experiential learning, to hear something and hear it multiple ways, because it starts to sink in. So I'm going to share with you this morning over the next hour what I call Zen in the art of living and leading in purpose. And my intention, as is my colleagues today, is that in some way, shape, or form, you leave here today slightly different than the way you showed up. By something you saw, you heard, a relationship, a connection that was made that causes you to smile, creates a tickle, maybe a tear, but in some way transforms you leaving here today. It is my intention, and I'm going to hold myself accountable to that for you. And I'll ask you at the end to do the same. Because really, as Ina kind of pointed out, we're all pursuing and questing the same thing. At the end of the day, we all really want to be happy, to be healthy, and to be whole. How we go about that is slightly different during our day's journey. I'm going to share with you a story as well this morning. It's a great story. It's my story. And through my story, I'm going to weave in concepts of how to live and lead in purpose. Purpose is my key word today. And I have to share with you that I have a great life. I'm living the dream. I don't have a sad story to share. And through these visuals, I can tell you that by living the dream, 26 years ago, I married my best friend. His name is Ken Burns. He's the other Ken Burns. He's not the story writer. He's the builder, but we love him dearly. And I was the first in my family to get married, from a background of an Irish Catholic family, and this was a big to-do, and I was the first one. So I had a sense of pressure against me. How do I show up at this event? What do I say? How do I make this so this is a positive experience that others will learn from? So when we got to our rehearsal and I had to share my vows, I was nervous, I was anxious, didn't have much presence about me, so I didn't think about the words, and I just kind of pushed them over there. Got some support, we had our ceremony, and it was lovely. And thus began my life. A few years later, I had a few kids. We've now got the family life going on. I also have a corporate career going on, and this is a picture of a boss's day card. Now, what you don't know about me is, yes, I am married, I have a few kids I'll share with you throughout this presentation, but I have a 30-year career in corporate IT. I was the I-daughter, T-crosser kind, only not really. I was in that environment. And I had a team of folks that were amazing. They were brilliant. I had the dream team, and it was a blessing. And I nurtured them, and I encouraged their brilliance and their involvement, so much so that when it came to National Bosses Day, it was embarrassing. Because I was down managerial row with all the other managers, and in come the florists, dumping the flowers at my desk, dumping the things at my desk. And the managers in my peer group would be like, oh, here she comes again. More flowers for her. It felt like an FTD florist. They would even create custom-made hand cards. Now, if you know anybody in the IT world that actually has a creative side that does that, it's an anomaly. But that was the kind of experience. I nurtured and fostered that team to bring out the best in themselves. And in the process of doing this, I started to realize my life was not so much an IT director, but I had actually become somewhat of a professional plate spinner. And there's a career for that. Meaning that I have my family life. So I have that plate. You know what a plate spinner is? On the pole with the plate, and you get it going, and you start the next one? Yeah, you got the idea. So here's my life going. Oh, it's going great. Here's my corporate job. I'm moving things along. it became a little complex. So what did I do? I needed a system. I needed a tool. I needed a way to manage this. So I created, and I should bring it with me, a binder called the Burns Book of Stuff You Need to Know About. And in that binder was everything. There were contact sheets for contacts for the kids and emergency contacts. There were shopping lists so that routinely the things that we needed, I could just pull the list out and copy, send it to the store. It got to the point where I actually created spreadsheets for my holidays because the family would come to us. So I had a spreadsheet for when I was going to set the table. I always love to set a good table ahead of time. Makes me feel good. The shopping list, how things were going to get done, I was highly organized. That system worked for me. So by the time things were moving along, I have my personal plate spinning, my professional plate spinning. I've got some involvement in some organizations with the kids and civic activities. That plate's going. By the time I would sit down and read a menu with my girlfriends or go out at night, not to worry. What are you having? You having Chardonnay? I'll have a glass, and I'll have the same dinner she's having. I didn't pay any mind to what I wanted. I was following a system and a process with not much engagement. But it's working. So by all accounts, would you not say I'm living the American dream? I've got it all. The caveat is, I was about to learn a very transformational lesson. And that lesson was about to reveal to me that just maybe this dream was not mine to live. And it started with this guy. This is Jim. And Jim was my dad. And Jim was the kind of guy, he was a connector. He was the kind of guy that would go to a football game with all of us, find that kid that didn't have a parent, at the end of the day, stick his hand out and say, well done, here's $5, go out and play with the kids. He created those relationships. Unfortunately, my dad also put things off till tomorrow. We got the day-to-day things going on with kids and families, so that trip to Italy or the things we want to do, that someday we're going to get to there. Someday we're going to do this. Unfortunately, Jim's some days never came. Because at 69 years old, when he retired, he got ill, and he passed 60 days later. So his some days never came. He passed way too quickly and way too soon. And at his memorial service, with my sisters and my mom close in hand, I received a message. And no one else received that message that day. Only I did. I believe it was a message sent from heaven. My angels were with me. And the message was, you can measure, the measure of one's life can be witnessed by the length of their line. See, my transformation started right here, and it started with Jim. And I pondered this message. What is this? The length of their line. What does this mean? I don't know. Kind of sat it there. A couple of days later, I went back to my corporate office. Now, I told you I was managing a family life, managing a professional team, and I was fully engaged with my team. So much so that you multitask. So I'm in the office and I've got my emails going, I'm answering questions, people are coming in my office. What do you need, Annie? What can I get you? Get Annie going and get her on her way. Rushing, 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 always rushing. I got to the doorway one day and I was riveted. In the doorway, I could walk no further. I was frozen because I realized at that moment what that message was all about. That message for me. The message was, you've got to create a line. A line is about connection. It's about creating those deep, rich, meaningful connections. And at a memorial service like my dad's, he had a long line because he was a connector. He was the one that would stop and reach out to others and see what their needs were and help them out and support them. So naturally, at the time of his death, everybody wanted to acknowledge his passing. And I also heard, there's an author, E.M. Forster, and he was asked once, what's the meaning to life? And in 2 words, he said, simply connect. I realized right there in my doorway, two things. Some days never come. It's not a real word. It's never going to work. And I needed to create a line. I needed to invest myself and create deep, rich, meaningful relationships, both personally and professionally. I was kind of doing it pretty well on the professional side. My team loved me. I had people that would walk down the hall and say, Paula, do you have any openings in your department? Do you have any needs? We would love to work with your team. Because I invested. But in doing so, I also realized that I had become a full-on professional plate spinner. Everything about my life I put in a system, in a track, on a pole, on a plate, and I was spinning them all. But that allowed me to keep them all out here and keep them surface, so I never had to heavily invest. Because to stop and really invest meant time and energy, and I was a little bit afraid of it because I didn't think I could manage it. And if I couldn't manage it, I might what? Fail. I realized more than anything right there, I needed to start living today, and I needed to start investing, and it needed to happen now. I needed to start connecting to myself. So let me ask a couple of questions. Have you ever thought in your quiet moments, there must be more to life than what I'm living? Do you sometimes crave for some form of significance or purpose? Well, right then and there in that doorway, I did. And I needed to change something. And I needed to change it quick. I had a holy shift moment. Because, right, yes, and we have the queen of holy shifts right back here. I had a holy shift moment in the doorway of my corporate office. And I knew right then and there, based on those two things, I needed to start living and investing today. And I needed to create those deep, rich, meaningful relationships. And it wasn't going to happen in my corporate environment. It did not support that kind of transformation for me. So in 2009, we all remember the economy back then, I'm sure. I did the unthinkable, and I gave my notice. I was going to tip the scale. As Ina had mentioned earlier, I was going to take that risk. I was going out on a limb. So I gave my corporate notice. Everyone thought I was having a nervous breakdown. My friends started calling Kenny and said, I think she's having a midlife crisis. Nobody in 2009 would ever do this. And oh, by the way, Ken was a builder, and his whole company got dissolved. So this just doesn't make sense on the outside. But I knew that something had to change or I was going to sink. And the risk of going forward to the unknown at that point in time was better than staying where I was.
Wow.
This was suffering, and it needed to change. And the message out of that, the safety net does appear. You can't see it then, but it appears. So I also realized on a professional level, something also had changed. You see, in our younger years, when we're bright and alert and aggressive and conquering the world, we have a set of values that we operate from. And those values look like power. I want to have position. I want to be known as somebody. I want people to recognize me for the thing I'm doing. It's external facing. Look at me. Money is also a value system. I want to make a lot of money. I want a six-figure salary. That's going to define who I am. Values. And status. I need to have a title. I want to be the C of something. The CFO, the president, I don't care what it is, but I need to have that. Those values are what motivate us. And typically those are the value sets that we use in the business world. We use them as leverage to move us forward. You've done a great job in this position. We've got an opening in another. I'll give you a few more bucks. We'll transfer you over and you're good to go. Who would say no? I'm climbing the proverbial corporate ladder. I'm not going to question myself or question your wisdom as to why I should be in that position. Of course I'll go, thank you very much. But when you have a life-changing event, whatever it is for you, and guess what? Each and every one of us have one. And it shows up in different ways in our lives. Some at a smaller level, it kind of bubbles down here, and others, like myself, it took the death of a parent for me to stop and see what was going on. But when that transition, that shift, that change happens, guess what also happens? Your values change. What's important to me changes. And I love, if any of you know Wayne Dyer, he's not with us anymore, but he's written a slew of books, and he's got a movie out called The Shift. And I love how he frames it. He says, our value systems in our morning years, when we're younger, are one thing, but in our afternoon years are another. So I like that afternoon thought. So what was that for me? Right then and there, I knew. It was like a switch that went. What do I value? And for me, what was really important was connection. How do I connect with others? Am I being surface and having surface relationships? Oh, hi, it's nice to meet you. How you doing? Great, you got kids. We're doing this, we're doing that. It's a business connection. But I'm keeping you over here. I'm not really investing to find more about who you really are and what makes you happy. Because guess what? When you invest, it takes time. And in the business world, we value time. It's precious. Go faster, do more with less. Those are good things to promote. Connection. Significance. Guess what? I wanted to feel a sense of significance, like I was seen, I was heard. That's a value that I now craved. Power, I don't really care about that. Position, yeah, that's great. They're a dime a dozen. But are you really hearing me? Do you really know what makes me tick? So often, we take somebody that's doing a great job in one position, and because they are, we move them over here. And guess what we do? We stifle them. Because now we've taken their freedom of expression, their creativity, that thing that's really jazzing them, hence they're doing well, and we shift them over and we box them out. And it doesn't work. And we do it time and time again. We do it professionally, we do it personally, we do it with our kids and our friends. Oh, you're so great at that, take this on. Oh, you're so wonderful, you're such a support, why don't you help me with these 5 things? Kind of see the picture here? We're not kind of getting underneath that. And purpose. I talked about purpose. What's my purpose? If any of you remember Steve Martin in the movie called The Jerk? He found his special purpose. And how excited was he when he opened the phone book and saw that he was in the phone book? He was like, look, I made it. We all want to feel that sense of purpose, that connection to something greater than ourselves, the connection to our gifts and talents. In your folders, you have what I work on, which is called purpose mapping. If you want to take that out and use it as a guide as we go forward, we're going to really focus on living and leading in that purpose place. On this, we're going to talk about the principles of purpose, if everyone's got one. We're going to go through that in just a second. But to highlight some of the areas that we've touched upon this morning already, it's about exposing those gifts and talents. What are the things that you do well? Not because someone else maybe tells you that you do, but they bring you happiness. They bring you joy. They bring you satisfaction. Those are your gifts and talents. So you might want to start jotting them down. And you can use this to reflect on after we leave this conference today as well, and noodle a few more ideas. Passions bring that together. I can do a lot of things, but I really love my glue gun. I really love cutting and pasting and putting crafts together. That makes me excited. Those start tipping into your passion places, your places of joy, places of happiness. And they all live on a foundation of value. What do you value? Money, power, position like we had earlier, or something deeper from within? So you'll want to think about your core values. Leadership. What's all this leadership thing? Do I need to think about that? Do I need to step back into that world? What is leadership? What's the definition of leadership? We've touched about the vision, about the purpose, about your why. Take it to another step. Leadership is about a tool set that you embrace to guide and inspire others. And I know we have various people here today with various careers. You may be in a position where you have a leadership team that supports you, that uses your vision and your inspiration to carry out that vision. But guess what? We're all leaders. We're leaders of our own lives. You may be leaders in the community. You are leaders with your family. It's scalable. You don't have to have the huge corporation to think you're a leader, because you're all leaders. And you all have a vision, a dream, and you're using inspiration, purpose to drive that. So I had the opportunity to reflect from my corporate experience, because that's what you do. You look at what's happened to you and gather some of the things that are going to work for you, and you try to put them together to figure out where you're going to go forward. I also had the opportunity to be trained classically in meditation, transcendental meditation. So that changed my life dramatically. I mean, talk about taking the stress factor out of life, and that's another conversation and another conference. But what it also illuminated for me is there's another tool set out there that we can embrace and we can use. And it's mindful leadership. So again, taking the practice and principles of what we have in our personal lives, and how do you transition and translate that to your professional life? Mindful leadership. What's that? Nobody's talking about that in my boardroom, I can tell you that. We're talking about project plans, timelines, and deliverables. Expenses. Mindful leadership is a state of being. Oh. It's how you show up. People pay attention to that? Yeah. It's the energy you possess. It's the smile on your face. We're all energetic beings. We can feel that. It's palpable. And in mindful leadership, the concept of it is to embrace and improve personal and professional significance. There's that word again, significance. Interesting. So significance in today's go forward, in our 21st century leaders, in our millennials who have a value set that's similar to our value set in our afternoon years, is about significance. Do you see me? Do you value my words, my gifts, my talents to this project, to this company, to what I'm doing? Significance is now valued. And I knew that inspired action was connected to purpose. Because if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, you're going to do it. So this is interesting. So mindful leadership pulls from a new tool set. So this is perfect. I now have the opportunity and time, because I'm not in my corporate position, to look at this new tool set and pull it all together, and then I'll figure out and know how to use it. Well, guess what? The tool set does not exist yet. This shift in value system is just starting to show its face. We have corporate executives who are in the 60 to 70-year-old range that are getting ready for retirement. And traditionally what you do is you create successive planning. So who's going to take my position to go forward? You're looking at your pull set, and it's the young, bright whippersnappers coming in that are go-getters, that are bright, highly educated, but their value system is different. They want to work 20-hour days, 18-hour days for 3 or 4 days, and then go hiking. Well, guess what? In our HR system, I need you to badge in for 40 hours, Monday through Friday, or I can't figure out how to pay you. Because we've got systems in place to keep it organized. But it doesn't equate to our value system. So I realized right then and there, okay, this is where my work needs to find myself right now. I need a new tool set. This is the tool set for the 21st century leader. This is worth taking notes for. There's 3 pillars I defined in my experience that we need to pull from. These pillars of work-life balance, of how you live is how you lead. The first one is connection. We need to have connection to self, spirit, and others. Connect to yourself. Who are you? You're more than just a title. You're more than just a position you hold. Spirit. We need to have a connection to something that's greater than ourselves, whatever that means for you. God, whatever you call it, universe, connection to something bigger. It allows that burden of, oh my gosh, how do I handle this, to be released, because I'm going to give it up. I'm going to ask for assistance and help. Guide me. And others. We don't live in this world to thrive unless we connect with each other. It just doesn't happen. We heard that earlier from Ina. We can survive, but thriving, I need you. I need you. I need eyeball to eyeball. And I will tell you, in today's world, we are highly connected by technology, and that's wonderful and supportive. It's also disconnecting us. I have a small cape. My 14-year-old son will text me upstairs, "I want sandwich." You could yell. It's a small house. They're so used to being on technology. We type with emojis. We type LOL for laugh out loud. We're not connecting. That's not an eyeball to eyeball energetic exchange. We can have both. We don't need to just have one or the other, but there needs to be a balance. You need to have alignment with purpose. Purpose is the thing that brings you joy. It's combining your gifts and your talents that are aligned with your core beliefs. My beliefs center on pillars of being kind, of being authentic, of connecting. And when I don't have a task, a job, my purpose in alignment with those things, you start to feel itchy. It doesn't work. And when that happens, burnout, disengagement, I'm just doing it for the sake of doing it, I'm half-assing it, starts to be retention. I don't want to stay here anymore. I'm leaving. I'm not doing this. Those are huge issues in the corporate world when you have a workforce with you and your team that are disengaged, that are not being creative, that are not being productive. It's not working. And risk, and we'll talk about risk in a little minute. But you got to take a risk. You got to be willing to take that next step beyond what's comfortable. So I'm like, perfect. I need connection, I need my purpose, and I need risk. I'm going to call it CPR. This is CPR for your soul, folks. This is what's going to keep us moving forward. And the beautiful thing, it's all grounded in a value system of mindfulness. Being present and focused in the moment, non-judgmentally. Showing up, being present. Perfect. So now I've figured out a tool set. What in God's green earth am I going to do with this? You start by stopping. What? What do you mean? What are you saying? You start to go forward by stopping. You need to stop. Take a pause. And you've seen this message already. Notice what you notice. I bet if I asked you the billboard that is displaying at the entrance or the on-ramp for this complex here, what that says, probably none of us could tell us. It was gray, I saw some coloring or some lettering. You're flying down the highway, there's lots of trucks passing, and you may see a frontage road with storefronts. It's all a blur. I see colors, I see some rough shapes. Why? Because we are going at Mach speed. Because our society says if you go faster, do more, it's a good thing. If you multitask, you're even better. Well, guess what? I'm here to tell you that there's no such thing as multitasking. The brain, physically, how it's positioned, how it's set up, doesn't allow us to multitask. We think we are, but in reality, there's always that other thing that kind of just sits over here, that second task. Well, I do this one. It's here, I can see it and hear it, but I'm doing one. Multitasking doesn't work. And it doesn't work for a really, really important reason. When you multitask, you think you're giving your full attention to two things. It's kind of like the airline. What do you say when you sit down? Dad, you should know about this, the airlines. The safety factors, sit down. If need be, when the oxygen drops, put it on yourself first before you put it on the young child. I understood it, but I didn't really understand it. I do now. Because if you're not whole, if you're not present, if you're not the best you can be, how can you really wholeheartedly help somebody else? You're going to give them half of yourself. Same thing with multitasking. You're giving half yourself to that issue.